Namaste and welcome to this exciting episode of Sathology Debunking Mythology. Sat means truth, Logos means a study or science. Sathology means a science of truth or study of truth. Opposite of Sathology is mythology. Myth means a fake lie imagination, and mythology means a study or science of fake lie imagination. Lots of mythology is being taught. My latest book is going to debunk many things. It's called The Curse on the Natives. It's going to hit the bookshelves next month. I've been very busy writing with that book. Uh, so one of the things that we see in this world is coming from a very deep colonial view. The entire development in the last 100 years has come through a deep colonial view of things. Even today's democracies, like for example, democracy in the US was put as a form of governance to remove, actually to bring European settlers into governance. That was the purpose of democracy in the US. In India, the concept is Lokatantra, which is very different than democracy. I have a very, very special guest, Vice Chancellor of Atal Bihari Vajpayee University in India, a very good scholar, economist, and also an individual researcher. And you can also call him a practicing monk in position. So without delay, let us welcome Professor ADN Vajpayee.
Thank you, Aditya. Thank you, Aditya, for joining me again.
So what is the Indian view of global integration according to you?
Aditya, fortunately, and we all know that everything is predestined. There is no coincidence as such. People call it a chance, a coincidence. For me, who are working in the area of spirituality, we see that everything is predestined. So today is 25th September, the day we are having this show on Sathology. That is the birthday of rather 105th birthday of Deen Dayal Ji Upadhyay. And Deen Dayal Ji Upadhyay who gave this concept of integral humanism. And that is the crux of entire Indian philosophy to be observed in day-to-day society. So this integral humanism, if being translated into a global platform, then we come to that India is a country which gave the slogan of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Entire world is just like a family. Am Nijaha Paroviti Ganana Lavuchesam Udara Charita Nam to Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. This is the shloka. Global integration, it is not merely by of international trade, not by the GATT, NATO, WTO, IMF, World Bank, and so many agreements, not merely exchange of scientists, scholars, not merely inviting universities from one country to the other one. It's all a very smaller form of global integration. Real integration is the emotional integration, cultural integration, and spiritual integration. India wanted to integrate the whole world. India has given direction to the whole world. Never had any sort of intellectual property right. Anybody could come to India, stay, learn, carry easy books from here and spread knowledge throughout the world. We are having the written history. The Chinese easy came to India, San Fayan, like that. They came, stayed, learned, carried easy knowledge from here, carried books from here, and they spread all over the world. India is a country which has given birth to so many religions. Sanatan Dharma is there. Mahavir Swamiji gave birth to Jain Dharma. Gautam Buddha gave birth to Bauddha Dharma. And you see, Gair Sanatani Dharma, Islam and Christianity, they too tested their, you see, principles on the land of India. So, what I mean to say that the Indian view of global integration has got its origin with the slogan of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. We treat the entire globe just like our family members. We don't discriminate between person to person, individual to individual. We treat them as our family member, as our sons and daughters, father and mothers. And if that concept is originated, then all discrimination on these mundane lines, materialistic lines, they will wither away automatically. It is just a matter of psychology. If you are thinking that other person is different and I am different, then your approach will be different. You are moving the society, meeting so many persons, but you are not attached with them. The sooner you come to your family, you become attached. And if that is attachment is also spread to outside family, you keep on integrating. And that integration is expanded in a most subtle manner, ignoring so many differences, the visible differences, the tangible differences, the caste lines, language lines, boundary lines. Then I think that Indian view of integrating the globe, that will be established, and it will be a more peaceful, rather more prosperous world to live. I think that is my first reaction to over your question on Indian view of global integration. Aditya.
So, global integration, if you look at the history, you're a student of history also. Global integration was done earlier by the Roman Catholic Church and Islam on the basis of, and we are talking purely from the history, for three things: gold, glory, and God. And gold, glory, and God played a major role in the conquest of creation of colonies. So we gave many negative names: imperialism, samrajyavad, or colonialism. And most of the wars have been created from Europe, originated in Europe or Middle East. Most of the wars. Do you think that the world has changed now and they're looking for a different type of global integration?
Glory and seeing God, seeing Jesus. I think they were not being used for integrating the world. Rather, making the world slave of their own, their empire, their kingdom, like that. For gold, suppose, if you are going out using all your military power, or intellectual power conniving with, you see, other forces, it does not mean that you are integrating the world. You are going to dominate the world. You are going to establish your authority on those countries which are weaker in nature. You are exploiting, you see, them. You're imposing your, you see, authority. You're imposing your dictums. You're imposing your, you see, philosophy. You're imposing your language. You're imposing your culture. Imposition is one part, and destroying the language, culture, civilization of the colonial world is another thing. This Britishers did. They made, you see, 80 countries as there is a colonies. But that was not a global integration. Neither for, you see, gold, neither gold, glory, or God. If they are being used to exploit the other countries, if they are used to dominate the others, if they are being used to make the other brave, that Indian view of integration means giving respect to everybody, respect to all countries, respect to all, see, countrymen living in all countries as they are. They may belong to any religion, they may belong to, you see, any language, they may belong to any caste, they may belong to any, see, economic, see, class as such. They may, see, follower of any god. Nothing to worry about. Even then, you are mine. You belong to me. That is the concept of integration. So, whether Islam or Christianity, they wanted to dominate the world, not to integrate the world. And today also, in the name of globalizing reforms came under this gamut of World Bank resolution. Do the developed countries exploited the developing countries? You see the statistics of all the countries, especially developing countries. Their statistics per se reveal that their balance of trade is not favorable. So what hell you are having is globalization? Globalization means you should share your prosperity, the best of your technology, best of your knowledge, best of your commodities being shared by those who do not have. Then it comes to integration. And what happened during COVID-19? Most of the developed countries also started thinking about Swadeshi. They didn't call it Swadeshi, they called it reverse globalization. USA, US first, UK first, Italy first, Japan first, Russia first, for themselves to fight against the COVID-19. And India said, no, if you are having some vaccines, we are having some medicines, we'll see, export them out, we'll share them out. We don't mind if the humanity of the world is saved by sharing some of our belongings to the world. That's the real concept of globalization. That is the real concept of global integration. This is not. Aditya.
You correctly debunked the old way of globalization, which is definitely has created more problems in the world, and it was a very selfish way. And primarily it was Britain, France. It was Britain, France, Dutch, which is Netherlands, Portuguese, and Germans also to some extent, Russia also. These were the European colonial powers which they exploited for their own benefit. Now, in the today's world, you mentioned the globalization was rejected by India. Sorry, localization or was rejected by India, and India focused on globalization. Now, the entire world history shows trade is the main focus for sustenance, economic development, and the protectionism actually destroys the trade, any sort of protectionism. But at the same time, if the protectionism it hurts your grassroots workers, like what British did to India. British exported the raw material and then imported the raw material and then exported the finished goods. So, what is the role of finished goods in today's economic cycle?
Aditya, there is no harm in trade as such, but the rules and regulations, the terms of trade must be beneficiary to both the countries. As you yourself told that England was importing raw material and exporting finished product. Okay, if the price of imported raw material was equal to the price of finished products being exported to colonial nations, I think so some profit margin would have been saved by these European countries, including say England. Well and good, but purchasing raw material at a cheaper price and you see selling finished product at much you see higher price is exploitation, a simple exploitation. So in the name of technology also, the poor developing countries, they don't have good technology with them and they want to increase their productivity. They want to increase their GDP, their growth rate. So it has become, I see, it's just a hidden dependence on developed countries for import of technology. And if the cost of technology is much higher than it should be, if you are having good technology, why don't you share at a cheaper price with these poor developing nations? And then they should also develop, and you should also develop. Both should develop. In today's world, this international trade is being used as a tool of exploitation by developed countries of developing nations. And if you see the statistics, the balance of trade of these poor developing countries is always negative, is always unfavorable. For 1 or 2 years, it's okay, but for continuously for decades and decades, it's unfavorable. It means that the capital, this very costly capital being generated by these developing nations is flying towards developed nations. And these developing nations, by your capital flight to developed nations, have contributed a lot for the growth of these developed countries. It's also a fact, everybody knows it. It's one part of the story. It is not merely trade of goods. It is the trade, rather attraction of the very good intelligent human power also. These developed nations have developed a concept of attracting the best brains of the world in the name of different fellowships. They provide, you see, not one, thousands and thousands of fellowships, very attractive fellowships, and they are being, you see, distributed to the developing nations. In India also you'll find that the best brains migrate outside, whether it's coming from IITs or IIMs or traditional universities. They go outside in the name of researches. They do see good research, they contribute to the research, they file patents also, and then they are absorbed there itself. People say it is good. No, it is not at all good. The brain which could have been used for the development of India or most of the developing nation is being used for development of the developed nations. And what is the outsourcing? outsourcing is another way of exploitation. You may say that outsourcing is good for its employment generation, but you know that how costly it is, how treacherous is the outsourcing, and these private companies, how much they are taking the brain and blood of these young boys and girls, unimaginable. So what I mean to say that uh, trade is good, but the type of trade and the philosophy of trade and purpose of trade shall have to be delineated, shall have to be identified, carefully identified well before we enter into the trade. Aditya.
What model which India should follow in the global economy, seeing that today India is number one or number two in, I think, vaccine production, I think number two, and in small automobiles, it is the actually getting to the number one position in these two categories. But still, I mean, we don't see a support to the Indian businessman globally by the Indian government. In the case of US, it is a very easily available. Like a US state representatives are designated to help American businesses succeed abroad. So, what things that we can do, or what is in your mind, your model of the global trade?
Uh, Actually, so far as business models are concerned, uh, India is also not different from others, isn't it? India must follow the business model which all these countries are following. Because if India has produced small vehicles, they must go and fetch market. Certainly, market won't be available in the countries, developed nations. So, uh, nearby countries, India should take care of first. It goes by that philosophy of Deen Dayal Upadhyay also, in which we make curve of the nearby circles like that. So, first of all, India should try to capture the Asian market. Then it should move further. If they have got surplus commodities to sell out, and well before that, if India is having its own good market, why not sell its products in Indian market only and fetch good profit? Then it should come out. For vaccine is concerned, I'll tell you, I'm quite apprehensive, Aditya. This vaccine production cannot be sustainable. Because today we are having, COVID-19, and this entire vaccine production is attuned towards controlling this COVID-19. And suppose COVID-19 situation is not there, then what will you have this surplus production of vaccine? So some precautions shall have to be taken so far as production of vaccine is concerned. But at the same time, India should serve the humanity by exporting vaccines at much cheaper rates and making full profit based companies in comparison to many other companies which are producing vaccines at a high rates. That will help India in generating income, capturing market outside, as well as serving the humanity. All three things can be taken together if India follows these three things which I have just mentioned.
That the vaccine is unsustainable model, and partly true in a way, because the raw material are dependent on the countries which control the trade, and the export
Yeah.
is that is one reason. And the second is the Indian vaccines such as Covaxin. What about that? And also there are other vaccines also, polio, measles, there are other vaccines also. And so biotech uh, is the future for the world in a way, because most of the biotech industry is, it's a very niche segment. India has a niche lead over there. And so, why do you say that?
I'm mainly concerned with the disease itself. If COVID-19 will not be there, then what will you do with these vaccines? That is my intention. And that connection, I get vaccine production should be as per the demand of vaccines. There should be complete assessment of demand for today and some prognostication of, say, 5 years. Universities are prone to see many which are basically required. Say, diabetes. Diabetes is a chronic disease. Cardiac arrest is a chronic problem. Psychological problems. So the drugs should be produced for the chronic diseases, not the temporary disease like the COVID-19.
I couldn't hear you. Anyway, so the what about the military production and military exports? Do you think that from the point of view of India?
There is something, the military production is quite, a profitable business. And these developed nations, maybe you see United States of America, you see SAARC, Japan, France, arms, ammunitions and forces, and see so many things, the air fighter jets, missiles, Rafale, you see, like that. You see, on one hand, I would just recommend that India must not go for, this military production for the sake of generating income. India must go for this military production for substituting its import of military arms and ammunition. You see, the budget of India's military forces, especially on defense, the major budget goes on import of the sophisticated weapons from outside. So my contention is that India should formulate its strategy, especially of production of military products. They all know that the things which are receiving imported. Why can't we have that sophistication in production of military items? If you can go to Mangalyaan, if you can go to see satellites, send satellites to see moon, Mangal like that, can't you produce a Rafale? You should go for the production of Rafale Bofors, say like that thing. Another thing I would like to mention that it's high time that India should invest in the researches on virology, because nowadays wars will not be fought in the name of this ground forces or these air forces or the water forces. There are viruses which are going to be afflict the country's defense power, as China did. You see, people are ashamed of saying that this is COVID-19 a Chinese virus. So, taking account of the virus war, start investing in anti-virus war weapons like that, so that our boundaries are protected and nation is protected. Aditya.
Most of the world's earlier colonial powers are also the world's biggest arms exporters, even till date, and which is a big problem for the security of the whole world. The same people who colonize are the biggest arms exporters,
Yeah.
and the irony is that we are buying from them. And the worst thing is the Indian the military development is directly based on military production. It's not based, it's a reverse way. So the, we have not seen the indigenous military development of India with indigenous weapons so far. And the armed forces, they usually buy off the shelf, which is sometimes good also because of their needs. But we have not seen, if you look at the American or European defense industry, is largely privately controlled, largely. And therefore the research and development comes out quickly, weapons come out quickly. In fact, Indian weapons are far more expensive than Western weapons, and they are far more inferior in terms of new technologies. Indians will be amazed that when they are buying Apache, USA is actually gradually phasing out Apache helicopters. So they are selling you one generation behind, and we are trying to catch up with the fifth grade, sixth grade, seventh grade. Do you think there is a need of Indian mind in defense production also?
Adit, certainly. It is the demand of the time, demand of the day. Actually, this strategy could have, you see, adopted by, you see, Indian leaders long back. Long back, we see on 15th August 1947, when India got, you see, freedom from colonial rule. The very first thing Indian, you see, leaders could have done to go for is a heavy investment on defense production, frankly speaking. Thanks to Mrs. Gandhi, thanks to Atal Bihari Vajpayee, thanks to Narasimha Rao, that India resolved to go for nuclear power. Had India not been nuclear power, India could have become slavery by now, either by these neighboring countries or another country. So if India can, you see, resolve to go for its nuclear power, why not a small, you see, arms and ammunitions? India must produce, and produce the best one without telling anybody, without letting everybody know that India is producing. And I'll tell you, see, Aditya, one very important thing. India possesses indigenous knowledge of producing small arms. And you belong to India, and I too belong to India. And our Prime Minister is also in India, in his states only. You know that villages, especially Uttar Pradesh, the central Uttar Pradesh, eastern Uttar Pradesh, and Bihar, and some portion of Madhya Pradesh, is known for this producing indigenous arms, which is being used for day-to-day fights as such. I don't recommend it. I don't certainly not recommend it. But that skill can be harnessed organizationally, structurally, for production, you see, better and sophisticated arms to be used by, you see, Indian military forces, Indian, you see, police forces. You know that our police is also not, you see, very good equipped with the latest, you see, technology as such. So what I mean to say that India must go for heavy investment, and for that, I recommend the import of technology also to a certain extent, if which is which suits to the Indian defense industry. That is possible. I would add, you see, one further, you see, a note to your statement, Aditya. It is not merely that these developed nations are interested in exporting their, you see, defense material. They are, you see, diplomatic, you see, brain. They are always busy to how to make these countries fight with each other. They are mainly responsible for creating clashes between countries and countries. And you know this example of American power in Afghanistan. For 20 years, they were just having controlling Afghanistan. And in one go, they tried to, you see, take their, you see, military power, you see, back to their countries and leaving Afghanistan to its own rescue. So their interest lies that India and Pakistan should keep on fighting with each other. So India will also purchase weapons from them, and Pakistan also purchase weapons. And they are doing these things everywhere because that suits to their vested interest related to defense production, isn't it?
True.
But it's bad strategy. just me, it's a bad strategy of development. It's a bad strategy of growth. Bad or the worst strategy of growth. Nation is happy. You should not fight with each other. And let me be happy. You should be happy. That is a global integration which we mean to.
No, true. Actually, that is a global integration which is needed. The another aspect of this particular thing is that the wars in Asia have always got Western interference in many ways. And being an American citizen, I can see that the China is a actually a cash cow for USA in both ways. They have big trade with China, plus they're selling big arms to India to fight with China. So both ways they are gaining actually. So you are absolutely right in your assessment. But India now it has emerged, and we know in America, India has a huge respect, especially with the speeches of Prime Minister Modi and also the work he has done on the ground. Doesn't India need to think a little more independently and see, like for example, I'll just give a suggestion. In Mahabharat, the north there was a north area which was completely given to Arjun to conquer the entire China and other places. So the economic development follows the military development. That's the norm of the world, right? In the whether it's an old age or it's new age, it doesn't matter. That's been the history of entire world. Do you differ with that with me on that, please?
Aditya, you see, when you are grown up, you are competent, you see, enough to fight with the others. Well and good. There may be one concept of fighting others and you see controlling them, dominating them, making others slave. In other way of life is to help others, to cooperate others, to develop others. In Mahabharata, I don't know that story. When Arjuna was asked to go outside and see, make other country like China under his control. Maybe China may not be that much developed because Indian philosophy has never been to exploit the weakest. Indian philosophy has been to help unite them, develop them, cooperate with them, and make them equally peaceful. If I am having something, that should be shared with those who do not have those things, so that everyone should be happy. If for the sake of happiness, peace, and prosperity, if you are going and even fighting those bad elements, if they are creating some problems outside, it's a good intention. It may be one purpose of going outside. But if you are going outside, making other countries colony, exploiting them, taking the raw material inside by making colony, selling your finished product at a higher price because they don't have any sale in the international market. It's a bad strategy. It's not good. It is as an economist, an Indian economist, I can't endorse. I may be misfit in today's world, but I'll have to take the line of my rishis and gurus. Then only I can I can reiterate I can make my point with full conviction and commitment. Aditya.
The one of the look east policies of India focuses on building a trade with the eastern countries, and I said before that the trade depends on the military, follows the military trajectory. Like for example, UK is so far away from India, but they are putting their submarines and ships in the Indian Ocean region. Even though India and UK are the friendly ships, but we need to remember the history that the British have always worked for the trade. They can go to any extent for the trade than anything else. India has not used their military effectively for diplomacy. What do you have to say on that?
No, I see India, whether you see, uh, I think after independence, if at all strategically, effectively, India used its military brain. That was in 1971 when India fought with Pakistan. But there was a lot of support from the eastern Pakistan side, that is West Bengal. India fought war with Pakistan, defeated Pakistan vehemently, defeated Pakistan, created Bangladesh, and there was full choice at that time. Mrs. Gandhi could have made the Bangladesh its colony, but Mrs. Gandhi also followed those traditions of Indian rishis. No, Baba, Bangladesh is Bangladesh. Let it be ruled by C. Mujibur Rahman. As long back in the years of Ramayana, Aditya, you are a great historian. You know it. Ram did the same thing. Ram defeated Ravan. You see, Ravan and got Sri Lanka under control, but gave Vibhishan to rule it. He did not rule it out. And same legacy Mrs. Gandhi also implemented when she also did everything. And I think that legacy still continues. Today also, suppose anything happens, suppose we have a see war with this Pakistan again, God willing, there shouldn't be any war like that. But some portion of Balochistan is raising voice. They are not getting good respect in Pakistan itself. If the Balochistan is created out of Pakistan, then Balochistan will not be ruled by Indians. That will be ruled by any Baluchi only in the hands of Modi. He will also follow the same traditions. So our philosophy is entirely different, Aditya, and it is being respected everywhere. And we are being respected for this philosophy only. And we are following the same philosophy the Americans and the British are following. Where will we go? I think we should have our own philosophy and philosophy based to see development paradigms, including military paradigm.
It very famously said in Mahabharata that Sanya Shakti brings respect to the nation. They're very clear. That has been the Western ideology. Western countries are not impressed by philosophy or anything else. They created their own philosophy. That their philosophy is that either you're a Christian or you are not a Christian. This is the way in average uh, official in the American State Department thinks, and they may not say it, but they think like that. They may not say it, but they may think like that. So they respect India not because of the philosophy or anything else. I mean, maybe on a personal level, but the people who are making decisions, they respect India because it is the world's largest volunteer force, military force, and they respect India because India speaks the language which they like to hear very clearly. That is it. Now, it is India's work through the missions to tell them who we are. If you ask an average American, what do you think of India? They'll say, oh, India has too many caste problems. That's the average American will say. Even after living so many years, whenever I meet a new person, this is what I hear. So, the where are we lacking in
I
communication?
think India has not been able to uh, decipher its better things outside. And it's not merely India. I think it is with most of the colonies. The British supremacy over colonies and the mindset still continues in Britain, America, and everywhere. So I think it will take more time. You'll be agreeing with this statement that things are changing. The reputation of India in 1947, in 1980s, 1991, and 2021 are not the same. The reputation of India is increasing. the opinion about India is also changing. It will take time. So one thing that India must work hard. India should respect its own industrialists. India should reformulate its strategies, indigenous way of thinking in economics, in society and everything. And wherever we get the opportunity, we should try to establish ourselves. And here I would like to say that our diplomatic offices outside, they should be made more effective. They should be made more prolific in this direction. They should organize many more conferences, and our good things should be disseminated outside. I think today's got our diplomatic offices are also not doing good things, but for celebrating 15th August and 26th January, what do they do? I don't know. They should be asked to play functional role as such, isn't it? Aditya.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Bajpayee ji, for coming on the show and discussing all these important matters. And I hope viewers also learned something, but because I tried to ask all these questions, and we need to like build an Indian narrative, which is very much needed. At Sathology, we do our best. Yesterday, I was in a conference and I was shocked to hear what people were talking. There are a lot of questions asked to me. There is very little awareness, and it is our work as an Indian American to spread this knowledge also. But we also need a support. Like, for example, the temples in US, they are just focused on maintaining themselves. That is one area. But the support has to come from offices of other prominent American congressmen and also Indian missions abroad, where they should be used for propagating our culture and our heritage. So thank you so much, Bajpayee ji, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you, Aditya. One thing I would like to add in this show only, we should think of centuries ahead. And one purpose should be totally placed that we want a globally integrated world with peace, prosperity for everyone. That should be the main purpose, isn't it? With that purpose, if you're just moving everything will be okay. Otherwise, just it's not good. So thank you, Aditya. Thank you, Aditya. Thank you very much.
Namaste.